What's going on, my Jets family? I want to thank you guys for tuning in to a special edition, a special episode right here of the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. You got me, Harrison Glazer, always excited to talk to you guys about them Jets. So, before we get in, like I always ask, if you guys can do me a solid, if you haven't, if you could please subscribe to the channel by clicking so in the bottom right hand corner of the screen on the logo, get you subscribed, be much appreciated. But today's episode is not one I normally do. Normally, as you guys know, I try to bring you more content throughout the week as we go. My episodes are normally yesterday, but if you didn't notice, we have a bit of a celebrity on yesterday's episode. We had New York Jet Matt himself, and New York Jet Matt showed up and asked me about my mid-round sleeper picks in the draft. And I had to stop for a second and I had to think about it. And I realized something when he asked that question. I realized that I hadn't dug deep into this year's draft eval as I already would have in previous years. Normally by now, last year we were in for a quarterback. So last year I was in early. Like I looked at everything with Trevor Lawrence, and you guys all know that I felt, that the kid was great, but I didn't like what they were building him into. This guy that the higher you build somebody, the higher they fall. That's just how it works. But as you guys know, I dug into a lot of different positions as of this time last year. And I took a second and I realized, like I say here, and went, I hadn't really dug into too many prospects other than what I'd seen in college football, what I'd seen, on the field. Normally by now I'd be looking into film and tape and reading as much as I can. And I found it interesting and I thought about it. And the more I thought about it, the answer, guys, the answer got me so excited. It's a two-part answer. So I realized something when Matt had asked this question. I realized again that I hadn't looked into prospects, but why? I'd realized that in years prior, and you guys can probably agree with me. Yes, this year's season is over pretty much. There's a couple of games left. We're not making the playoffs. That's what I mean by over. But, excuse me, but it feels different. It does. Like going back to last year, Sam Darnold at the helm. Most people were questioning if he could even be the guy. Adam Gase is the coach. I didn't have that hope that I have right now. That feeling of this. And this is that first part. That feeling of I have hope for the future. I believe we're building something. But more importantly, I believe we're building it the right way. That's the key. You guys remember way back when we talked, about the hiring of Robert Saleh and, of course, Joe Douglas, obviously. The comparison I always made was a bridge, if you guys remember. I said that if you build a bridge on a crap foundation or the foundation is cracked somewhere, it doesn't matter how big and great and spectacular you build that bridge, it's inevitably going to fall. It's not going to make it. The foundation, that bedrock, is what matters the most. And I'd felt it, I've always felt that way about Joe Douglas since he's been here with his prospects. And that's the second point I'm going to get into. So I'm not going to talk too much about Joe, but it's this feeling overall of Joe Douglas and the coaching staff and Zach Wilson and the draft picks. It feels different. It feels different. I'm excited about the future. So even though right now the season is over, I'm still excited. Like at this point last year, I was done. That's what I'd realized. Like in pretty much every year prior for like the last decade, at this point, it was over. To make myself feel better, I'd realized that draft eval was almost like a therapy to me in a way. I would dig into it and I would feel hope again. I get that hope of what if we get this guy? What if we get that guy? I love what I see in the film of him. What if he can do that for our team? I'm not doing that as much. I'm excited in the now. I'm not excited of what can potentially be. I'm excited for what is, what we're building. Again, building finally the right way. And I realized that was a big reason I didn't get into draft eval. Because as you guys know, we've talked about it. I have a new job now where I'm working insane hours and I bring as much Jet content as I can. And that definitely plays a factor. Don't get me wrong, it definitely does. But I thought about it. I was like, obviously I don't have the same free time I used to have, but there's still free time. You still dig into stuff. I was more looking into the current players, like looking more at Eccles and looking more at Bryce Hall and watching Will. I realized I'm excited with the now. And it's literally this point number one that I have hope for the future and I believe we're building something and finally the right way. So that just got me hyped. And that's why I wanted to share that with you guys. Because again, it was weird to me because as you guys know by now, I'm into my draft eval. So that was my first point. My second one might surprise you. And my second one has to do with Joe Douglas. So you guys know, you know too painfully well, like I do, what it was like before Joe Douglas got here. You know what it was like when we had no GM that knew what they were doing. And as I joked, it was yesterday, I'm pretty sure, I said we might as well have done the opposite. They should have literally taken everything Itzik and McCagnon wanted to do. And like I mentioned yesterday, I was like, okay, so you like that guy on your big board? That's your top guy? Cross him out. Who else do you like? And just cross out from there. Like, so I'd realized that, I dug so much into draft eval myself because not only, do I like certain guys, but I didn't trust our guys. I didn't like who they were bringing in. I was looking into more of my own guys who I like, even though I like to do draft eval myself. But I realized something. I realized that, as you guys know, from the first time Joe Douglas did his first draft, I was blown away. And I still feel like I know a lot of people don't like that draft class. A lot of people still feel like it's a bad draft class. Well, the majority of that draft class is injured. And yeah, Denzel Mims right now is looking like a big miss. He's definitely looking like one. But we have to remember, and we've talked about this, putting our GM hats on, he's not Denzel Mims. He can't make the kid do anything. Mims was supposed to be a first-round pick. He was, as we talked about in the past, I didn't have him in many mocks because he was gone by the time the Jets drafted. And we all praised Joe Douglas at the time for trading back and still getting Denzel Mims. So it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback. I mean, it's easy to say, oh, well, this should have been and that should have been. But when you look at it in the situation, I get to point number two. And point number two is, honestly, I thought about it. It's the first time in my life, for the first time in my life, I actually believe to trust the process. I always wanted to, past me, if they didn't know about Joe Douglas, they'd be coming in the camera right now and just punching me in the face. Like you just see a hand come in and I'd be out. Like they're like, what are you saying? But for the first time in my entire life, I trust the process and I trust Joe Douglas. And again, I mentioned I really liked that first draft. The guys he drafted, loved almost all of them. This last draft, we've talked about it. I said back in, I think it was like, again, April, May, it might have been June, whenever it was. I said before the season started that this class has the potential to be one of the best Jets draft classes ever. And I still truly believe that. It is unbelievably dynamic. Well, okay, maybe you miffed on Denzel Mims, but he hit on Elijah Moore. I mean, that dude should not have been there at 34. So we look at it, Mims shouldn't have been there when we got him. He hasn't panned out, but he shouldn't have been there. Same thing with Moore. Same thing with Michael Carter. This guy knows what he's doing. Every player Joe Douglas drafts, you guys remember I talked about it. When we went back to Itzik, back when I was, younger, and then McCagnon, our last GM, every time they took someone, I talked about it with you guys, either it's like, I'm angry at who they took, I don't think he's the fit or what a position I wanted, or I flat out don't even know who he is. Like, I'm like, wait, time out. Like, I should know who this guy is, and I don't even know him. So my point is I'm definitely going to get in a draft eval. Like when the season ends, I'm definitely going to dig in deep. But I thought it was interesting that I hadn't dug in yet. And that's what my question was to myself, because I was like, well, as you guys know, obviously last year was quarterbacks is different, but I put a whole bigger emphasis on that. As you guys know, I brought you so much and I felt about Zach Wilson and the potential I felt in him, but we have our quarterback now, obviously. But you look at the potential and it's exciting. So just going back to all of that, I mean, it's interesting. Like I said, we talk about this last draft class, all the guys that I had basically, and you guys know, Joe Douglas didn't take a lot of the guys on my board. Like you remember, I had some 4-3 outside linebackers. I was looking at, outside linebackers. I was looking at Chaz Surratt. I was looking at Charles Snowden. I felt like Snowden was massively slept on. A couple of other guys I was looking at. I wasn't thinking to get safeties that are big, physical, box and coverage safeties that are great tacklers and play them as hybrid linebackers. Basically, get two of those Keanu Neals. Also, drafting safeties like Michael Carter to potentially play slot corner, and he looks like one of the best slot corners in the game. So, you guys remember when Joe did his draft, there were a lot of guys that he took that weren't even on my board, but I dug back into them. And you remember, I came back a couple days later and I was like, every pick's a hit. You guys remember, I was like, I love it, love it, love. I dug into every single one of them and I loved every second of it. Everything I saw in all of them, I was excited for Eccles and his potential. Still excited about Jason Pinnock and his potential. Jonathan Marshall, I loved every single pick. Like every single one wasn't on my board. I don't know how I missed Jason Pinnock, honestly, because as you guys know, I was looking at big physical corners. You know, one later round guy I really liked was Rodarius Williams out of Oklahoma State, and I think he's looking pretty good in the NFL. I hadn't seen much of Pinnock for one reason or another. He just wasn't on my radar, which is surprising. He's an ACC guy. I'd seen him play. Maybe I thought he was a junior. I don't know. But as I dug in, I loved what I saw. I mean, you guys saw the numbers I put up. I did some deep stat polling on him, and it was impressive. He was putting up numbers statistically impressive to like Derek Stingley Jr. Like it was ridiculous. So these two things made me realize this. I realized for these two reasons, the fact that I'm excited for the now. Like I said, like in the past, the future gave me hope. Like looking into what could be in the draft. I'm excited for the now, the guys we have, the potential so many of them have, our rookie quarterback. I'm happy and in the now. Like we only have a couple of games left. We're out of the playoffs, but I'm still in the now. I'm still hyped about what can be. And also, like I mentioned here with point two, I almost feel kind of sick saying it, but I know that it's true because I trust the process now. I really do. So, like I'd mentioned, Joe Douglas took a lot of guys that weren't on my board. And as I dug into them, I was like, love it, absolutely love it. Like, how did I miss that? So I'm at the point where, yeah, I'm going to do draft eval, but whatever Joe does, honestly, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that. I honestly can't believe I'm saying that. But that's, as you guys saw the name of this episode, hope and trust. And it's our story, hence a New York Jets story. Our story's being written right now. Hence that first part. I'm again, like I said, when the season ends, when there's no football going on, obviously you're going to see me dig deep. But why has that not happened yet? And I realized I'm so excited for the now. I'm excited for Zach Wilson. I want to see him play. I want to see him light it up. Even though Elijah Moore's not there, he's going to be back. And he's like we talked about yesterday, he's a wide receiver one. He proved me and everybody wrong. This dude is it. Like I said yesterday, put him next to on Zach Wilson's right for the rest of their lives. Like, let's do it. So I trust Joe Douglas. All these guys he took, again, I was like, I loved it. So I'm definitely going to, tell you the guys I like, but I'm at the point where if whoever Joe Douglas takes, I'm like, okay, I bet even if it was someone I wasn't even that high on, I'm going to start being like, oh, I guess he sees something I don't. Like, I'm going to go back and look at the tape because he must see something that I'm missing clearly. That's the faith I'm getting. And I love it, man. I love having that kind of faith in just, as we've talked about, he sees guys like I do. Like that was the biggest thing with him. If you guys remember when he took Mekhi Becton, that was my guy. Like everyone else, Andrew Thomas, and even worse, who many people still, I had Becton number one. And yeah, granted, he's had injuries, and that's obviously again out of Joe Douglas's control, but he was my top guy. So obviously getting Mims, Bryce Hall was it. Like that was him and Becton. I was like, that's the draft for me. Like everything else is just icing on the cupcake at this point. But then this last draft, like we just talked about, all guys I wasn't even looking into. I had to legitimately look up, I'll be honest, because I watch SEC football, but I hadn't seen Kentucky. Or when I did watch Kentucky, I was looking more at the edge rushers more. I hadn't really seen much of Brandon Eccles. I had to dig into him a little bit. And as you guys saw, I tweeted out, I found a lot of impressive numbers and some really good film and got super excited. Then I saw what the potential he had of what he was physically capable of doing. Man, Joe Douglas, I can't believe I'm saying it, but again, for the first time in my life, man, I trust the process. Like I mentioned, I'm going to tell you the guys I like, but whoever Joe Douglas takes, like, I'm believing in him right now, man. I am. And like, he's got to do something. Joe Douglas has to do something to show me that ain't true. Because right now, he's showing me that it is. So I appreciate all you guys out there. I see Anthony saying, sup, appreciate you. Uh, Andy says can't root for losses rest of the year. I totally agree. And that, again, always, even last year, I think I'd mentioned, even when hope was lost, like Case was our coach, Darnold, people had a questionable future, and we didn't know where we were going. You still want to win. Like football's exciting, Like when we won those games, it was great. So I always want to win. I always want to win. It's not about having the highest draft pick because again, you can always trade up. You can always make something happen. There's always something that can be done, and Joe Douglas has shown it through free agencies, through waiver wires. This man is a damn magician and a robber. This man pulls magic, pulls rabbits out of the hat, and then he robs people blind. And I absolutely love it. Anthony, I don't know if you saw yesterday's show. If you didn't, check it out. Went into that completely. Went all into that. That was my biggest thing. That was literally my biggest take. So if you guys haven't seen it, yesterday's episode was a positional analysis. I went into every single position, and I feel that I showed that when this team is healthy, we're not as far off as everybody makes it out to be. People make it out. And again, we've seen these blowout games where even I was like, it feels like we're far off. But when I look at it, we're actually not. So check it out. Went all into that. That's the guy we got to get. And I honestly feel if we trade our first round pick, our second round pick, and maybe like a fourth or fifth, I'm thinking that should be enough to potentially move up for one because as of right now, we have four. Obviously, if that drops, that changes. But we'll have to see. I think it's doable. And to get a guy like that, we've never had a guy like that. That's what we talked about yesterday. But I appreciate you, man. See you in here. I see it's Snoopy in here saying, Mims deserves more rope. Corey Davis has been terrible, and he's never held accountable by anyone but the fans. I talked about that yesterday, too, honestly, which is interesting, how Corey Davis, he is not a wide receiver one by any means, but he is a decent wide receiver two, if not a pretty damn good wide receiver two. And we look at the money he's been paid. I pointed out, my co-host pointed out that, he didn't get a huge contract. Like he got paid, but you could argue it's big wide receiver two money. So Corey Davis at wide receiver two, you got more on wide receiver one. I want to bring Crowder and Berrios back, maybe draft another guy. Talked about that wide receiver room's looking pretty good. Saying JD still got a lot to prove. I implore you, man, check out my episode. I did an episode on why I feel Joe Douglas is a great GM. A little outdated. It was like 3-4 months ago-ish, maybe a little longer, something like that. But check it out. I went into all the reasons. I'm telling you guys, we have something special here. We truly, truly do. And I can't believe I'm saying this. Like, number two surprises me. It really, really does. But I trust the process right now, man. I do. Like I mentioned, especially with this last draft class, Joe Douglas has proven to me to trust in his decisions right now and the players that he believes in the draft. And until he proves me wrong, that's what I'm going to be doing. Again, I'll be looking at my own guys, but I loved everyone he took. And I wouldn't be shocked next year if he takes a bunch of guys that I wasn't looking at. Maybe again, potentially we'll see. I look at him and go, damn, definitely could happen. Definitely could happen. Tom's here saying good evening, brothers. I appreciate all you guys, but I just wanted to share that with you because that was a question that New York Jet Madigan, shout out to him. Appreciate him being there yesterday. Not sure if he's here now, but appreciate him being there yesterday. Really do. Excuse me. He asked that question and it got me thinking. And at first I just, I brought up guys that I'd seen play in, games up to this point and guys that I'd really liked, but mentioned I hadn't dug in that deep. But this is what I thought about. I thought about it a little bit because I'd realized, like we said, I was like, wait a minute, like I know the season's still going on, but at this time last year, like I was deep in. Like I was like, I could tell you like stats and specs on like almost everybody at this point, but I haven't done that yet. So I definitely think these are two big factors. I really do. And like we say, it's hope, excited about what's now, trust, and it's beautiful things, guys. It's beautiful things. I'm very happy about it. And I wanted to share that with you. That made me feel really good. I felt like, it's almost like I think it's that Allstate commercial where they're like, you're in good hands. We're like an Allstate commercial right now. It feels like we're in good hands. It definitely does. And I like it. I like it a lot. So I appreciate all you guys being here. I appreciate you, like always, tuning in, being part of the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. Try to bring stuff throughout the week as we go. But as you guys know, the show's on Mondays. So you tune in Mondays, 7 p.m., bringing you all about them Jets, just talking, having a lot of fun, chatting. You guys, bring your comments, bring questions, bring whatever. We talk about it here. That's what we do. But again, appreciate all you guys. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a great, great rest of your Tuesday evening. I believe it was Anthony, yes, who pointed out that we got to keep winning, and I'm with it. Let's keep kicking butt. Let's win some games. Let's have Zach Wilson look great because our future is bright, even if it doesn't look immediately bright yet. But it would be nice for it to look immediately bright. So maybe we can get some brightness as this season goes on. But as I mentioned with Peyton Manning, we talked about in the past, there should be major strides through the offseason. That's what we're going to see. What we need to see, and what I think we're going to see, are major strides through the offseason into year 2, and then significantly more as well into year 3. So I appreciate all you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Hope we win on Sunday. Have a great rest of your evening, and let's go Jets.